Volunteer now. Help vulnerable and oftentimes overlooked children in Arizona. Court-appointed special advocates, known as CASAs, are assigned to children as advocates during their experience in the foster care system. Volunteer now. You can change the life of a child for the better. Visit azcourts.gov/volunteer to learn about court-appointed special advocates. That's azcourts.gov/volunteer. This message is sponsored by the Arizona Supreme Court.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants.
I'm just doing what comes naturally. How bad can I be? Bad can I possibly be?
Welcome to Your Health is Wealth, giving you the keys to unlocking better health naturally. Today, you'll learn about how to bank wisdom for a fuller, richer life. Your hosts are Dr. Stephen Katz, an award-winning naturopathic doctor and former president of the Arizona Naturopathic Medical Association. Also, Dr. Lorena Ryder, naturopathic doctor and current board member of the Arizona Naturopathic Medical Association.
Good afternoon and welcome to Your Health is Wealth here on Money Radio 1510 AM, 105.3 FM. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Katz, alongside my co-host, Dr. Lorena Ryder. We are here each and every week to help navigate your journey to wellness, but we like to do that simply without all of that horrible medical terminology that nobody likes. See, I changed it this time. We're here to help provide practical solutions to help you with your health issues, and we allow the body's healing systems to do the work for you. It's simple, it's natural, and it works. If you're still struggling with your health, you can come see us at Naturopathic Physicians Group to help get your life back.
Dr. Ryder here. So what are we talking about today? Our topic of the day is heavy metal toxicity. And we're just going to talk about what heavy metals are, how they affect you, and most people have the question, how would I ever have heavy metals? I've not been in the military. I've not been in a war. They think that heavy metals come
Never ate a battery.
Well, that's good. But yeah, they're in our environment. They're all over. And we do get them whether we try to or realize we were in a situation or not. So we'll talk all about those. What we will be discussing today are arsenic, aluminum, cadmium, mercury, and lead. And we might throw a few others in there, but those are the primary heavy metals that we contract through our lives that cause toxic, just basically cause our bodies to be toxic, and we need to get those out of our bodies.
Yeah, and we'll also talk about how to test for them properly, because one of the big misconceptions when it comes to heavy metals is testing. Oftentimes when people are testing for heavy metals, they are not being tested correctly, and they're wasting a lot of money just to be told that they don't have heavy metals, even though they were tested improperly and do. So it's very, very important to understand where do these come from, because then you can try and block some of the exposure if possible, but also to make sure you know your true burden, because if you don't know your true burden, then you have no way to fully eliminate them or as much as you possibly can.
Right. And we all likely have even just a small amount of these heavy metals in our system. The problem is whenever they become at a higher level, that they've built up over the years, and that's when they become toxic. And we actually do need some of the smaller toxic, or a smaller amount of toxic metals in our system, like nickel. Our body actually uses nickel to for different cofactors to process things in our body, but the problem becomes when it's a high level.
Much like everything, if you have too much of something, it creates an imbalance. Even drinking 5 gallons of water in a day could still kill you, and water is needed to survive. So it's really about how much is in your system, and is it to the point of causing toxicity? Now, when it comes to removing the heavy metals, I talk with a lot of my patients and say, I don't ever look at heavy metal detox as a cure. Now, if you have an acute exposure, you got to get that out of your system, but I don't really look at it as cure. I look at it as an obstacle in the way of cure. if you've got cardiovascular disease that's being caused by lead, which is a real thing out there, despite what your cardiologist says, it is a real thing out there. If you have lead in your body, removing the lead does not fix the cardiovascular disease, but it can stop the progression of the cardiovascular disease so you can do other things to actually heal the cardiovascular disease.
Yeah. And to be honest, anybody over 40 really should have some sort of chelation. I mean, you should have a test first to see what's going on in there. But anybody over 40 throughout their lifetime was exposed to lead paint, lead pipes, leaded fuel. I mean, you used to be able to pull up to the gas station and say leaded or unleaded fuel. Mm-hmm. And that's bad.
Terrible. And yet the other aspect is that there's always government standards with this stuff. So when they tell people this does not have this heavy metal in there, the answer is a lot of times it does. It's just under the legal limit. So they tell you it's none. But if you're already in a toxic burden, if you're already high on a certain heavy metal, even that little bit of exposure can exacerbate your problem.
Mm-hmm. Where do the toxic metals build up? Like people are probably thinking, well, I feel fine. Could I have heavy metals? Probably do. There's only one way to find out. And they build up just in any tissue in the body, anywhere, brain, bones, muscle, all over the body.
And some heavy metals have a bigger affinity for certain areas, but that doesn't mean they're not all playing together and creating havoc. I mean, over 40, definitely, like you're saying, get tested because of the major amount of lead exposure that you had, before it was outlawed in 1978. But even kids now, when you're talking about the soil that they're growing food out of is just full of it. The secondhand smoke people are associated with, even medications, deodorants, and we'll get into more detail about where the exposure are. But if you're talking about using aluminum deodorant from preteen throughout, your life, that's a lot of aluminum exposure, and it can be causing problems.
Yeah. Now you mentioned like soil that food is grown in. So I just feel like I need to elaborate on that a little bit. So if it's non-organic food, they're spraying pesticides on that food. Those heavy metals are in the pesticides that they're spraying, which get absorbed into the food, the leaves and everything that grow your food. So people, it's one of those invisible question marks where it's like, well, is this real? Do I have it? Well, does it really affect me? If heavy metals are toxic at a buildup level in your body that is unhealthy, it can cause things like it will trigger neurodegenerative diseases. So that could be anything from Alzheimer's and dementia to Parkinson's disease.
And when they're talking about conditions and testing for heavy metals, again, it's just such a poorly done process of determining heavy metals. And then when it comes to like the food, whether it's the soil or not, when you're talking organic versus non-organic, I hear all the time, well, organic doesn't really, it still has chemicals. The answer is correct, it does. But would you rather have 50 chemicals and heavy metals, or would you rather have one or two? It's still about burden and how much. You're still way safer, way cleaner to stay on the organic side than the non-organic side. But to say, and again, I hear this, and I'm sure you've heard this before too. Well, organic still has chemicals, therefore I'm just going to buy the non-organic. And I'm like, it's still a significantly less amount of pesticides and chemicals used.
Well, and this is what's going on. I mean, there's one Earth. We can't really put non-organic foods in a bubble of their own. They're still exposed to the atmosphere, just like we are. So if you have a conventional farm down the road that's spraying pesticides, the rain comes, washes it down. It's the same soil. Yes, it's going to leach and go into the underground water, and the organic farms will pick some of that up. But I would certainly rather get the least amount of those heavy metals than just getting sprayed with them.
Do you mean that, so when wind comes by, these pesticides don't know to stop before it gets to the organic?
They're just not that smart.
There's no barrier there? No, but again, so what is a heavy metal? It's a toxic metal. It's something that in the body, if it builds into toxic levels, it creates damage. It creates blockages. It affects adrenal glands. It affects the brain. It affects the heart. And it can be a recent exposure, but that tends to be more rare. When people oftentimes think about heavy metal toxicity, they're thinking they just came in contact with something and it just happened to be there. Let's get rid of it. But no, acute exposures are much less common than chronic exposures and build up over time. And if your system, if your liver and your kidneys are not working as properly and they're not detoxing as well, or you don't sweat as much to get that stuff out of your sweat, it can affect any part of your body, anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah. And if you're thinking, well, how do I know? How do I know if I have heavy metals? One symptom that you might not even realize is just body odor. If you have body odor that you can't seem to get rid of, no matter what you try, it could be that toxic load. Yeah. So thanks for tuning in to Your Health is Wealth here on Money Radio. Stay tuned with us after this break. We will continue talking more about heavy metal toxicity and what you can do about it.
So what did the doctor say?
He said I might need surgery.
Wow, it's that serious.
Well, we won't know for sure until I talk with a surgeon, but I'm lost. This is all new to me.
The decision to have surgery isn't easy, but neither is living with pain.
There is an alternative to surgery. At the Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale, our doctors are experts in full-spectrum care using a natural approach and can restore pain-free joint function so you can avoid surgery. Patients come in for a variety of issues, including joint pain, chronic conditions, and issues specific to men's and women's health. We also help restore balance in immune, digestive, and hormone systems, which often improves both immediate physical symptoms and also improves cognition and emotional stability. So when traditional medicine suggests you need surgery, how about taking another approach? Call Naturopathic Physicians Group at 480-451-6161. That's 480-451-6161. Or go to naturopathicgroup.com.
Tired of that same old spin on Washington? You want the truth? Then listen to All Right Now with me, J.D. Hayworth, every weekday 3 to 5 p.m. right here on Money Radio. I'll give it to you straight. I've represented you in Washington, and I've lived to tell some tales. You can get involved. Call in, text our show, and you know you'll get it right. It's All Right Now, every weekday 3 to 5 right here on Money Radio.
Life is challenging and ever-changing, so take control with passive income through real estate investing. Learn how, learn now. Let Del Walmsley and Lifestyles Unlimited's investors and mentors show you. Go to GiveMeTotalFreedom.com for our special offer, a financial freedom membership for only $297. That's 60% off the regular price. Enter promo code 2024. Learn to retire through real estate investing from the best. Go to GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Learn the path to retiring at GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Code 2024.
Welcome back to Your Health is Wealth here on Money Radio. I'm Dr. Lorena Ryder with my co-host, Dr. Stephen Katz. We are naturopathic physicians. We're live today and every Friday at 1 p.m. We discuss a different topic about natural remedies for your health every week. And today we are talking about heavy metal toxicity, and we'll try to fill in the blanks where you might not understand what's going on because it's out there, even though it's invisible.
It's invisible. So every single week I do a segment called What Isn't Your Doctor Telling You? This is not an anti-doctor segment. However, when you go to your doctor, if you are not getting the answers you are looking for, or you are not getting any answers from them in the 4-minute appointment that you had with your primary care physician, you're probably going to be missing some information. So I like to give an info or a tidbit that you can talk to your doctor about every single week. And if you do talk to your doctor about something like this, they'll probably look at you like blank-eyed because they're not going to have a clue what you're talking about because they don't always understand it. That was mean. Oh, well, it's not a lie. So this week, I want to talk about plaque in the arteries. So where does plaque in the arteries come from? Since we're talking about heavy metals today, I figured this is a good one. So when our body sends plaque, because we're always afraid of plaque builds up in the arteries and causes blockages, which leads to heart attacks and strokes. But where does the plaque come from? If you've spoken to your cardiologist, they probably never told you this. I'd question sometimes if they even knew this. That being said, but it's your immune system that actually sends the plaque. Why would our immune system send something that is bad for us? Now, again, I'm not saying plaque is good per se, but the idea is when you damage your arteries, your body has to patch up that damage. The immune system sends plaque to patch up that damage. So it's important because it's like a Band-Aid to a damaged vessel. Now, if you keep damaging that same vessel over and over again, then naturally you're going to build up more and more plaque that leads to the heart attack and stroke. So too much plaque, again, is really bad. But if you do damage your vessels, you have to patch that up. Why that's important on the talk during heavy metals is lead is found as it connects to calcium absorption, and calcium is one of the main ingredients in plaque. So when you are really high in lead in your body, and it is the number one heavy metal in your system, you are more likely to develop plaque in your arteries and increases your risk to heart attack and stroke. Therefore, lead is bad. Lead can cause your plaque buildup in your arteries. And if you actually get rid of the heavy metals, I've seen it. We've cleared out people's arteries. I know your cardiologist will say that's not true. Prove it, all these other things. But again, they don't like us anyway, and we really don't like them either.
So that's all really cool and also very true. So before the break, we talked about like how do I know if I have heavy metal toxicity? I feel fine, I look fine, and I said about, even just body odor can be a sign that you have a toxic overload of heavy metals. The cardiovascular disease that Dr. Katz was just talking about is a sign that you may have heavy metal toxicity. The neurological diseases, like I mentioned earlier, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, any skin conditions, diabetes, osteoporosis, because like you said about lead and calcium with cardiovascular, that also applies to the bones. So, and any developmental delays in children can be associated with heavy metal toxicity.
Huge. But again, if they're measuring it incorrectly, then oftentimes they'll be told they're normal when they're not. And when you said lead and bones, yeah, if lead is connected to calcium absorption, if you've got high levels of lead in your body and you don't remove that lead out of the system, it does increase your risk of bone issues, including osteoporosis. There are studies that follow this up. But even in practice, I've seen this in practice where someone comes into the office with osteopenia and osteoporosis to where they're on all the calcium, they're on the D, they're taking every supplement, and their bones are not getting better. They're just getting progressively worse. I've tested those same people and their lead comes back really high. So we chelated them, they redid their DEXA scan, and their bones improved.
What do you know?
What do you know?
Let's talk about some traditional diagnostic tests on how to find out if you have heavy metals in your blood. And usually that's what a conventional doctor will be checking is blood. However, that's not the most accurate form of testing because blood is going to test a current exposure. So unless you are being poisoned by a water supply, a angry spouse, or some
rectal thermometer
that broke and whoops. But yeah, blood is pretty much the conventional test that will be done. Now, naturopathic testing, we do something different.
Something accurate.
Yes. It's called chelation with IV form and a urine test. We usually do like a 6-hour urine test. There's 24-hour. There's different types of tests you can do. But we do urine following an IV, and that's our test.
It's called provocation or provoking. When you do chelation means metal binding. So it attracts the metals wherever they're stored, whether it's your skin, your liver, your lungs, your brain, wherever it's stored, it attracts them into the urinary tract, and then you pee them out. Now, your kidneys don't like to lose things, so you're going to reabsorb them back in. But every time you do a chelation treatment, you dump more. And the first one you do is going to be your highest dump and your highest exposure. So it's by far your most accurate testing when you do it. There's a lot of places out there, and I've seen it online. Test the hair because the hair stores heavy metals. It's still nowhere near as accurate in the hair follicles as it is when you provoke the heavy metals from wherever they're being stored. So if you don't do any kind of provocation, you are not getting a true accurate test.
Agreed. And I mean, it's painless. It's just you have to put urine in your refrigerator for 6 hours and
not forget to collect every urine for 6 hours.
Right.
But it measures 20 different heavy metals. It tests from aluminum to arsenic to barium to bismuth to cadmium to gadolinium. If you're somebody who's had a lot of scans in your past, gadolinium is one of the heavy metals that gets put through you.
That IV contrast.
Yeah, that's one of the heavy metals that get put through you in order for them to get the imaging. But of course, lead, mercury, nickel, platinum, tin, uranium. So there's a lot of different heavy metals, and each one of them could be having an implication in your health.
Yeah. Let's talk about arsenic. I think most people know what arsenic is, and you can find arsenic in groundwater. So if you don't have drinking water that's filtered or has a good, the city water is not going to have arsenic in it. It's just going to have other things in it. But if you have a well,
everything but water,
right? And you're using that well water to prepare your food. Not only are you drinking it, but you're also cooking your food in water that could be high in arsenic. If you are a smoker, there are high levels of arsenic found in tobacco because of the soil that is producing the tobacco. So there again, it's grown basically into what you're actually consuming.
Arsenic, shellfish, again, the water, industrial processing, if you're around any kind of adhesives, preservatives, pigments, textiles, they all have arsenic in them. This stores really heavy in the skin. So arsenic is linked to a lot of skin issues. It can cause other things as well, but it's linked to a lot of skin issues. Now, with arsenic too, a good tidbit from history is that arsenic causes you to go pale because it kills your red blood cells. Now, in the Victorian days, they didn't know that, and being pale was looked upon as royalty and rich and high standing in society. So people would take arsenic tablets, and it actually you can go to old antique stores, and a lot of times they'll have like arsenic tins there. But they would take arsenic tablets and it would make them pale. Now, it was also killing them, but it made them feel like they were part of high society until it killed them. But it made them pale because it killed their red blood cells, and so it made them anemic. And there's your history lesson of the week.
Crazy. Let's talk about aluminum. So exposures from aluminum could be like cooking tray. I know, or even like cooking pans. When I was growing up, my parents' pans were aluminum. Now I know that is bad. Storage containers, any type of aluminum foil. If you're wrapping and cooking your food in aluminum foil, not the best thing. Any aluminum cans, even though they have that coating on the inside, it's still an aluminum can. Any processed foods, that soil, again, fruits and vegetables, they're grown in soil that likely contains aluminum, alcohol, and that tobacco again.
And there's a lot with aluminum. So when we get back, we'll touch more on aluminum. So thanks again for tuning into our weekly show, Your Health is Wealth, here on Money Radio 1510 AM, 105.3 FM. We are Dr. Stephen Katz and Dr. Lorena Ryder, naturopathic physicians that practice in Scottsdale, Arizona. When we come back, we will discuss more about heavy metals and what we can do to rid them from our bodies.
Things may seem wrong, but soon it'll be all right now. JD Hayworth here. Join me weekday afternoons 3 to 5 on Money Radio.
And this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks losing steam and pairing from earlier gains and ending the last trading session of the month in the red, even after the latest inflation report strengthened hopes for interest rate cuts in September. The new reading on the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, showed a 2.6% rise in the 12 months through May, which was lower than the previous month. The core index also rose 2.6%, down from a month ago. Shares of Dow member Nike stock tumbled 20% after the sneaker and sportswear company reported fourth quarter earnings that topped analysts' estimates, but revenue and first quarter guidance missed forecasts. The Dow winners, Salesforce, United Health Group, and Goldman Sachs. The Dow decliners, Nike, Visa, and McDonald's. The Dow falling 45 points, the Nasdaq lower by 126, S&P 500 down 22. It's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
Hi, I'm Ron Kraszewski, Chairman and CEO of Stifel. Financial advisors, let's face it, if you're not growing your practice, you're losing market share. Stifel is a growing, entrepreneurial, advisor-centric firm built for successful advisors like you. There's a reason why 148 financial advisors joined Stifel last year. Come join us and find out why Stifel is the firm where success meets success. Visit www.choosestifel.com.
Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Robinson with Your Money Now. U.S. stocks finished today's session lower. The Dow Jones Industrial fell 45 points. The S&P 500 dropped 22, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ dropped 126 points. Pixar's Inside Out 2 is on pace to become the first film this year to reach ticket sales of more than $1 billion. It would mark the first film to cross the $1 billion threshold since last summer's hit Barbie. In its first week and a half of release, the animated film raked in more than $724 million in global ticket sales. Warren Buffett is making his biggest annual donation to date, giving $5.3 billion worth of Berkshire Hathaway shares to 5 charities. A total of 9.93 million shares went to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with the rest going to the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, named for his late first wife, and the 3 charities led by his children Howard, Susan, and Peter Buffett. That's Your Money Now.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Potential aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Cue the fireworks and celebrate Independence Day with the Omaha Steaks 4th of July sale. Save 50% off site-wide and fire up the perfect backyard cookout with tender steaks, juicy burgers, deli-style franks, and more family favorites. Shop today at omahasteaks.com and score an extra $30 off when you use promo code QUALITY at checkout. Plus, every purchase is backed by their unconditional money-back guarantee. Hurry, because this offer won't last long. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code QUALITY at checkout.
Omaha Steaks, America's original butcher.
If you're still working, you're still making money. But what about retirement? Make sure you have reliable income then, too. Keep listening to your Money Radio experts to find out how.
So what did the doctor say?
He said I might need surgery.
Wow, it's that serious.
Well, we won't know for sure until I talk with a surgeon, but I'm lost. This is all new to me.
The decision to have surgery isn't easy, but neither is living with pain.
There is an alternative to surgery. At the Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale, our doctors are experts in full-spectrum care using a natural approach and can restore pain-free joint function so you can avoid surgery. Patients come in for a variety of issues, including joint pain, chronic conditions, and issues specific to men's and women's health. We also help restore balance in immune, digestive, and hormone systems, which often improves both immediate physical symptoms and also improves cognition and emotional stability. So when traditional medicine suggests you need surgery, how about taking another approach? Call Naturopathic Physicians Group at 480-451-6161. That's 480-451-6161. Or go to naturopathicgroup.com.
At Desert Wholesale Diamond, we pride ourselves on providing top-tier quality, unmatchable prices, and excellent service. I'm Diamond Dave, and my track record in the diamond industry dates back 4 generations. I've eliminated the traditional middlemen, providing you with direct access to wholesale markets.
I'm Jada Cantor, and we offer you the best diamond buying journey of your life. With 3 wholesale offices and a dedicated production team, we make it easy for you to buy diamonds at unbeatable wholesale prices.
Our 34 years of industry leadership proves our dedication, and we continue to lead the way in all areas, particularly in lab-grown diamonds.
Save yourself from paying retail. Experience the most pleasant diamond buying experience ever. Meet Diamond Dave and his team, who are all waiting to assist you with your wholesale diamond purchase.
Call Diamond Dave at 480-397-2450, 480-397-2450, or follow him on Instagram at Diamond Dave Cantor. That's at Diamond Dave, Kantor.
Hi, and welcome back to our show, Your Health is Wealth, on Money Radio 1510 AM, 105.3 FM. I'm Dr. Stephen Katz, alongside with Dr. Lorena Ryder. And we are here today talking about heavy metals.
Hi. So I have your tip of the week this week. So I have a lot of patients that say, do I really have to go through with the IV therapy? Isn't there anything I can do at home to help remove heavy metals? Well, nothing is going to be as efficient as the IV chelation. However, if we get to a point in your treatment where we've done, 6 or 12 or so many sessions that we need to just catch the last few or the last bottom end of that scale, then yes, you may do a few things at home that's probably going to help with maintenance along the way. So garnish with dried organic parsley. Pretty simple. You really need the dried version, first of all, because dried is going to be more concentrated than the fresh parsley. And you definitely need organic. Otherwise, you're putting those heavy metals right back into your system again. Parsley binds to heavy metals. Also cilantro as well. They're in the same family. Make sure you're increasing your water intake, getting plenty of sleep, because those are 2 detox pathways that you must have whenever you're trying to get rid of heavy metals. Cilantro mobilizes the heavy metals, but it doesn't pull them out of your body. So you need to support that body detox system by drinking the extra water. And then, I would say go through a bottle of dried organic parsley a month. Make that a goal.
I love parsley. I eat it plain without any issues. A
And
lot
it
of people
doesn't
don't
really
like the taste, but
taste
I do taste it, but
Oh,
I
you
like
do?
it. But one thing you said there that I really like is, if you're trying to get that last little bit, is really important. It's also really important to know that if you've already detoxed and your levels are good, you can add this to help protect yourself from retoxing your system as well. It can help keep it at bay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good. In the last segment, we first talked about arsenic as one of the 5 most common heavy metals we're exposed to, and how it affects our skin or stores in our skin, and how it's linked to other conditions as well. And then we started talking about aluminum. Aluminum is one of the highest exposure heavy metals, probably number 3 out there, if not even fighting for second place, if there was a fight. Food, we talked about storage containers, cooking trays, again, cooking with aluminum foil, and the fruit because of the soil, veggies because of soil, tobacco. Aluminum is in the tobacco products. But one of the other big exposures that people get aluminum from is vaccines. Now, again, we're never telling anybody pro or anti-vaccine. As the doctors, we're just giving you information. We're not telling you what to do or what not to do. We're just telling you what's in these products. So your Hep A, your Hep B, your diphtheria, your tetanus, your influenza, and your pneumonia shots. Again, not every company makes it the same way, but a lot of the companies will have aluminum in there, and aluminum is a heavy metal, so can cause problems.
You can look up these ingredients. They're not hidden from you. You can ask to see a sheet of an ingredient list of a vaccine.
And it's probably a word you might not recognize. Look up the words, because there is information, or you can look up different words that mean aluminum.
Yes.
And you'll see all of the different terminologies they use, especially when we get to like mercury, when you hear things like thimerosal. Most people don't know that word, and yet it's mercury.
Right. You can also find aluminum in drugs such as aspirin and antacids. I mean, those Tums, they're going to have aluminum in them.
and cosmetics, probably by far the biggest exposure people get in today's world to aluminum. Deodorant. Deodorant, you put it under your arm and you put it there every single day for decades and decades and decades, and you are creating a heavy metal burden in your system. One of the things that aluminum has been linked to is breast cancer, and it's one of the biggest fears for women out there. Well, if aluminum creates a toxic burden in the system, and where you put your deodorant under your arms every single day, well, the number one spot you get breast cancer from is right in the area right next to your armpits. It's not a coincidence. You have to stop putting this junk, this horrible stuff under your arms, and then wonder why you get breast cancer.
Yeah. Aluminum also stores in the brain. That's, what we hear with Alzheimer's dementia patients. They've got an abundance of aluminum. It also can float around in your blood and your lymph. And speaking of the breast cancer, you've got the lymph nodes right there at the lateral side of the breast. And that's where the aluminum can store up and cause a problem. Also, tons of organs, your liver, your heart, your spleen, muscles, and even bone can have that aluminum stored up in them for decades.
Decades.
Yeah.
But it is most notably known as a neurotoxin. Muscular, as you said, Alzheimer's. There is research on this that proves this information. And removing this stuff from your body, I can't tell you it's going to prevent Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, nor would I. The idea is if it's linked to creating neurotoxicity, why would you want to have neurotoxins in your body? And then after you get Alzheimer's, you're like, well,
can I fix it?
How do you fix that?
Yeah.
So again, this is really about understanding what causes problems and then trying to prevent them in the first place.
Yeah. And this is easy to ignore, because if you don't have any symptoms, you don't have any concerns, life gets a hold of you and time goes by. And then next thing you know, you're 50 years old and you're like, oh, maybe I should check into that. Yes, I agree. You should. Let's talk about cadmium. That's another heavy metal. This exposure would be from industrial processing. So this is like smelting. So mostly the exposure would be through the air. This is the byproduct of smelting. Also, consumer products like tobacco, paints, plastics, and batteries. You also get cadmium from your food, fish, shellfish, especially those farm-raised shrimp, and then found in the soil again with produce, beans, seeds, and grains.
This is one, smoking is probably the biggest exposure people get, even secondhand, as well as this is why we tell people, not the only reason why we tell you, when we tell you to eat fish or shellfish, wild caught every time. When they are processing them in the farms, there is so many more. Already you have the toxins from the ocean in the farm, but now you're talking about the plants that they're forming in there, and there's heavy metals in there, including cadmium. Cadmium can be measured in the blood, but it's still not as accurate without a provocation or a provoking aspect. So it's still not as good as testing it through chelation. It's also measured very well in the hair, the nails, liver, kidneys. Not measured in there, but that's where it stores. So again, you can measure this in different ways, but your best, most accurate way is still going to be through that provoking IV. But this one, anywhere, but very hard on the lungs. This one's very much been linked to lung issues, including potentially lung cancers. But again, they always blame the smoking. It's the smoking, but it's not always the smoking. It's the stuff in the smoking that is part of the toxicity. When you smoke, if there's cadmium in there, and it damages your lungs, it increases your risk of the cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. Also cadmium can be found in the kidneys, causing kidney failure, kidney toxicity, the bones, causing that demineralization that ends up as osteoporosis. And again, cardiovascular disease, like the other heavy metals that we were talking about.
And then the next one we want to talk about, this is probably the second most common one, mercury. Mercury is, it's everywhere. Food and water is the highest exposure people are going to get, especially again from the ocean. So the fish are eating, and again, wild caught is better, but fish itself is a major source of mercury out there. The liver of a fish can be as much as a third of their body weight. And since the liver stores all those metals and all those toxins, imagine how many metals and how many toxins are in a fish that weighs 200 pounds or more, like a tuna. So the big idea of when you're eating wild caught fish is, one, you have less metals because it's not farmed, but also the size of the fish makes a huge difference. The smaller fish are going to have a lot less heavy metals than the larger fish.
And that counts for fish oil supplements too. You want to be careful about that, making sure you're getting quality fish oil supplements from either smaller fish or a source from a company that tests those metals and you can trust them.
Yeah, and another exposure from food is corn. High fructose corn syrup, the soil again, how it's being made, very high amounts of mercury. So you definitely want to try to eat as little of that as possible. And if you do, most definitely get organic.
And vaccines, again, you can find mercury in vaccines, but you can get that list and take a look at it. If you feel like you're just not getting to the bottom of your health issues with your current doctor, give us a call here, Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale. Stay tuned with us. And when we come back in our next segment, we'll finish up talking about the heavy metals and also how we can rid those of your body so that you can live a better, healthy quality of life.
So what did the doctor say?
He said I might need surgery.
Wow, it's that serious.
Well, we won't know for sure until I talk with a surgeon, but I'm lost. This is all new to me.
The decision to have surgery isn't easy, but neither is living with pain.
There is an alternative to surgery. At the Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale, our doctors are experts in full spectrum care using a natural approach and can restore pain-free joint function so you can avoid surgery. Patients come in for a variety of issues, including joint pain, chronic conditions, and issues specific to men's and women's health. We also help restore balance in immune, digestive, and hormone systems, which often improves both immediate physical symptoms and also improves cognition and emotional stability. So when traditional medicine suggests you need surgery, how about taking another approach? Call Naturopathic Physicians Group at 480-451-6161. That's 480-451-6161. Or go to naturopathicgroup.com.
This is Ference, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. Whether you love banks or hate them, I think we can agree they're savvy about money. Banks typically borrow from the Federal Reserve 7 to 9 times their customer deposits, then loan those funds to earn interest. Banks typically average 30 to 40% gross income annually on consumer deposits. You can safely leverage bank money in a similar manner. We have banks that will fund ongoing annual premiums into your high cash value policy that is principal guaranteed. The cash in your policy is an asset and can be used as collateral. Your average rate of return can grow to strong double digits annually within a few years. This can be done income tax-free with guarantees and no downside market risk. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422, 866-268-4422 to learn how to earn double-digit returns, income tax-free with guarantees and no downside market risk. Or tune in to the Your Personal Bank Show Tuesdays at noon.
Welcome back to Your Health is Wealth here on Money Radio, our weekly show on how to take charge of your health and help get your life back. We are from Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale, Arizona. Today, we are talking about heavy metal toxicity and what you can do about it.
So in the last segment, we were in the middle of going over mercury, which is the second most common heavy metal people will be exposed to. We talked about vaccines as a source of them, and usually the ingredient's called thimerosal, and you will see that in the packaging if you read the ingredients. Another common exposure to mercury is going to be amalgams. So if you've had your teeth filled in, your cavities filled in, and it was more than 5 years ago, 10 years ago. When did they stop doing that?
I don't know. I had arguments with my dentist about 20 years ago, so it's been since then.
Yeah. So you probably had mercury put in your mouth if you had cavities. Now, we do get asked a lot, should I remove them? And it's a question mark, because our acids in our mouth will erode that mercury already out of the amalgam. So oftentimes, if you've had them more than 5 years, you've probably already got all that mercury in your body. But if there's any still left in there, is it worth removing and replacing? The answer is it can be, for sure. But is it worth the extra work and effort if most of that mercury is already in your system? That's the question you got to ask yourself.
Yeah. The smelting, that's just the funniest word, will also put mercury into the atmosphere. Any manufacturing companies and light bulbs. So you have to be careful with those light bulbs. If you happen to drop and break a light bulb with mercury in it, you'll want to get a mask and some gloves and clean that
and run
up.
like hell.
Well, that too.
I actually remember that if a bulb, when I was younger, if a bulb broke, you were like, run. And thermometers, again, if they had mercury thermometers back, long ago, and they would, give you a bunch of mercury.
Yeah. Well, my siblings used to break them open in order to play with the mercury in their hands. That's safe, right?
Brilliant. So where does mercury store? This is another one. It can store in a lot of different places, but very heavy in the brain, very neurotoxic, also affects the GI tract, can injure the kidneys. This is also one that is passed into utero as well. So you can give this to your children if you have high levels of mercury.
Yeah, long-term consequences of mercury toxicity would be the neurological impairments like Alzheimer's disease, psychosis, visual disturbances, even hearing changes, neuropathy, where you have that you can't feel your toes and your distant limbs quite as good as you used to, tremors, brain fog, and memory impairment. And also, if you have kidney damage or your kidney filtration rate just tends to keep going down, one of the things I'm going to be checking is heavy metal exposure.
Yeah, and lead, number one, far and away exposure. We already talked a little bit about lead when it came to how it caused people to go, osteoporosis. It's one of the links to it. It's also, it binds to red blood cells. So lead will affect any part of your body because your red blood cells go everywhere. This one also passes into utero. But the biggest exposure with lead is anything. Now, again, back in the day, food, water, pipes. We already talked a lot about that. Consumer products. You talked about gas earlier, gasoline, paint. Again, lead was not banned in paint until 1978. So if you grew up in a house that was built before 1978, you grew up in a lead-based house. If you used to put all your toys that came from China in your mouth, you put lead in your mouth. So this is a high exposure, and it can sit in your system for decades. So just because it was 1978 does not mean you still don't have some of that lead sitting in your body.
Correct. Lead can also be found in construction just because of the building materials, smelting again, any type of manufacturing on a large scale, the paint and the pigment production. So just producing these things.
And cardiovascular disease, as I did in my What Isn't Your Doctor segment, telling you lead is one of the causes of plaque in your arteries. So it is very much linked to cardiovascular disease. And the treatment that we use to decrease lead out of your body, chelation therapy, was originally invented for cardiovascular disease. They realized it helped remove the plaque out of the arteries.
And then they've abandoned it.
And then they abandoned it because they love those drugs. It is what it is.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to get this pesky metal toxicity out of your body. Now, we mentioned it earlier. It's called chelation therapy. It's an IV therapy. It is the most efficient process of removing toxic metals from your system. Takes about an hour. We have nice, cushy, comfy chairs you can put your feet up on. Honestly, come in, get the test done, and then we go through the protocol. If you don't have heavy metals in your system, good for you. Fantastic. You don't have to do it, but at least find out.
Yeah, I mean, that first initial test is huge because this is a potential preventative test. We get asked all the time, what can we do to prevent problems, not just treat problems? This is one of those tests that anybody that's, of course, we always do safety checks before we do it. But if you pass the safety check, it is one of those eye-opening potential treatment options for you. It has vast capabilities of making your life healthier. And again, chelation means metal binding. So you do the IV, we put two different chelators in there. We do EDTA and DMPS into the IV, and then that attracts the metals to come out of wherever they're being stored in your system into your kidneys, into your urinary tract, and then you pee them out. We collect that urine, and that's what we send to the lab. They come back, and it usually takes about a week or two to get back, and then they test for 20 different of the most common heavy metals out there, and then you get your results, and they put them in a not a bad exposure, moderate to severe. And to me, if you have a severe reaction to heavy metals, again, get rid of that stuff. It's not going to help you.
And we, according to how many or how high your heavy metal levels are, we will come up with a protocol on how many IVs we think you should have. And then at the end of that treatment, we will retest. We'll retest to make sure that the treatment is working, the levels are coming down. You may need more therapy, or that may be sufficient. But, it's good to know, it's good to see the dial move and see those toxic metals come out.
Yeah, because everybody has different conditions and everybody's going to detox at different rates. So when we put your protocol together, our initial estimate of how many treatments you would need is based on the data. The first thing you do is the test and the initial IV. Once those results come back, based on our years and years of doing these treatments, we have a good estimate of how many treatments are going to be needed to remove those metals into normal levels that our body won't be damaged from. And at that particular point, we retest on that estimated one. And when we get those back, oftentimes we're good. Everything looks great. How do you feel? And other times we're like, well, you know what? We got a lot of it out, but you still have some left. And so based on how much you detoxed in this many, we might need another one or two treatments to kind of finish the job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an impossibility thing to predict because everybody detoxes different. But because we've been doing this for so long, we're pretty good at being pretty close.
Yes, we are. So what else can you do besides the IV chelation? And I would do this in conjunction with, I would not do it instead of, it just doesn't seem to be efficient, but definitely diet and lifestyle. So control what you can control, what foods and drinks you put into your body. We talked about how important organic foods are, and then minimizing those chemical exposures. We talked about deodorants before. Make sure you're getting aluminum free. Any other type of shampoos, soaps, detergents, makeups, look at those ingredients. Become an ingredient reader. As annoying as it might be, it may just save your life.
Yeah. And smoking, don't do it. We've said that probably every week. And again, it's like, beating a dead horse. But truth of the matter is there's 69 toxic chemicals on average in cigarettes. And there's arsenic, cadmium, and lead. So 3 major heavy metals are found in smoking in cigarettes.
You can support your detox pathways by exercising on a regular basis. This increases your blood flow to your detox organs and helps remove that toxic buildup throughout time.
Supplements, kidney supports, liver supports, vitamin C, ALA, NAC, all of these different supplements out there support your detox pathways. So we're not saying pick one, pick all. We're not saying any of that. We're just saying you need to support your detox capabilities when you are going to remove those heavy metals from your system. And read ingredients on everything, not just what you put in your mouth, what you put on your body. Again, deodorants, soaps, any kind of chemicals can be playing havoc in your life and could be causing you a heavy metal toxic burden. So thank you for joining us today on Your Health is Wealth here on Money Radio 1510 AM, 105.3 FM. We are the doctors from Naturopathic Physicians Group. We hope you have a great week.
Your Health is Wealth. Be sure to tune in next week to learn more wisdom on how to live a fuller, richer life. If you have questions about today's show or would like to find out more about the topics we discussed today, call the Naturopathic Physicians Group at 480-451